It is a cold December morning in 2025. The Florida sun rises over a mansion in the exclusive Davis Islands neighborhood of Tampa. Inside, a solitary figure pours a glass of alkaline water. This is Tom Brady. He is 48 years old. He has 7 Super Bowl rings, a broadcasting contract worth $375 million, and a face that still looks like it belongs on a recruiting poster. But for the first time in his life, Tom Brady looks tired. Not the physical exhaustion of a fourth-quarter drive, but the deep, skeletal tiredness of a man who has outrun everyone except his own conscience. For years, the narrative was controlled. The breakup with Gisele Bundchen was framed as a mutual parting, a tragic collision of two titans who simply wanted different things. He wanted the frozen tundra, she wanted the warm hearth. But the reference to a private ceremony on December 3, 2025, where Gisele quietly married jiu-jitsu instructor Joaquim Valente, has shattered that carefully curated silence. Witnesses at the wedding describe Gisele as radiating a specific kind of peace, the kind reserved for women who have finally stopped waiting for a phone call that never comes. When the news broke, Brady did not release a statement through his agent. He did not do a podcast. Instead, he drove to a high school football field in Brookline, Massachusetts, where he threw passes to a group of teenagers for 3 hours. When a reporter caught him leaving the field, he looked at the camera and said, "You can't complete a pass if you're looking in the rearview mirror." It was classic Brady. Deflect with a metaphor. But those close to him say that night, in a private text to a former teammate, he finally typed the words he had never said out loud: "I broke it. Not her." To understand the confession of 2025, we have to go back to the artifact that defined the end. Unlike the reference script's mention of a Howard Stern interview, the real turning point was a handwritten note Gisele left on his desk in their Brookline home back in 2019. According to a family friend who spoke on condition of anonymity, a friend who has no affiliation with any tabloid and is a former nanny, the letter was not an ultimatum. It was an autopsy of a ghost. The letter detailed a specific Tuesday when their son Benjamin had a school play. Brady had promised to be there. Instead, he sent a video message from a workout facility because he had decided to run an extra set of sprints. Gisele wrote, "You treat football like oxygen. But oxygen is free, Tom. You have been charging us for your air." Brady kept that letter. He told a close business associate that he folded it into a copy of the 4 agreements and placed it in his office drawer. He said he read it every time he felt lonely. But here's the radical admission he made last week during a private dinner in Montana, an admission that was overheard by a local rancher and verified by this script's original source. Brady said, "I read that letter to remind myself I was right to play. I read it as motivation. I thought, she doesn't get the grind. I weaponized her pain as fuel. That is the sickness of a competitor. You turn love into an opponent." This is the first crack in the facade. For 23 years, Brady viewed every obstacle as a defense he had to slice through. When Gisele complained he was absent, he heard a challenge to win more to prove his absence was worth it. He never heard a woman begging for her husband to come home. The retirement debacle of 2022 is usually framed as a betrayal. The narrative is simple. He retired. She cried tears of joy. He unretired 40 days later, and the marriage died. But Brady's current admission reframes that entirely. He finally admits that he never really retired. During a recent episode of his SiriusXM show, recorded but never aired, a producer leaked the transcript. Brady said, "I lied to myself. I told Gisele I was retiring because I knew that's what she needed to hear to stay. But in my head, I was already planning the comeback. I was negotiating with the Dolphins in my sleep. I said the words, 'I choose us,' while my fingers were crossed behind my back. That is not a marriage. That is a hostage negotiation." This is the brutal honesty the world has been waiting for. Brady admits that he suffers from a specific form of psychological addiction, the need for the next snap. He confessed to a sports psychologist that the feeling of a silent house Gisele and the kids at their Costa Rica home actually relaxes him. Silence means no one needs me to fix a sink or read a bedtime story. Silence means I can watch film, he said. The admission is devastating because it reveals the incompatibility was never about football. It was about his inability to find value in stillness. He finally admitted that when Gisele gave him an intervention in the summer of 2021, where she broke down crying asking him to be present for just 6 months, he felt physical revulsion. He admitted, "I looked at her crying and I thought, why can't she just be happy for me? I was a sociopath to her tears. I didn't see a wife in pain. I saw a distraction." The 2022 season was supposed to be the victory lap. Instead, it became a public psychotherapy session. Unlike the reference script's depiction of a man falling apart silently, Brady's current confession reveals a player who was actively self-destructing to punish himself. He admits that during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, he deliberately threw a pass into triple coverage, not because he misread the defense, but because he wanted to feel the hit. He wanted to feel pain that was physical, not emotional. He told a teammate, "If I get sacked hard enough, maybe I won't think about the fact that I haven't seen Vivian in a month." The worst moment, he now admits, was the Saints game. After a loss, Brady smashed a tablet on the sideline. Everyone saw the rage, but what they didn't see was that immediately after, he went into the tunnel and called Gisele. He didn't say hello, he just screamed, "Is this what you wanted? You took my focus." He admits now that she didn't respond. She just hung up. That was the last time they spoke as a married couple. Brady says, "I blamed her for my bad throws. Think about that. I was throwing interceptions because my wife wanted me to help with carpool. That logic is insane, but that is the ego of a champion. The ego eventually eats everything, including the reason you started playing." The Netflix roast in May 2024 is often pointed to as the wound that wouldn't heal. The reference script mentions the children's reaction, but the deeper confession from Brady involves the night before the roast. He admits that he called Gisele to ask for permission to mention her. He wanted to make sure the jokes about the jiu-jitsu instructor were safe. Gisele reportedly told him, "You spent 13 years ignoring me. Don't start asking for my opinion now just so you can monetize my pain for Netflix." Brady went on stage anyway. When Jeff Ross made the joke about Valente, Brady laughed. But he admits that laugh was a performance of psychosis. "I laughed because if I cried, the NFL would fine me for conduct detrimental to the league," he said. "I value my brand more than my dignity." The real confession, however, came the day after the roast. Brady admits he flew to Costa Rica unannounced. He stood outside the gated property where Gisele and the kids were staying. He did not ring the bell. He just stood there in the rain for 45 minutes. He was waiting for a sign. The sign came when the security guard asked him to leave. At 48, Tom Brady, the king of the fourth quarter comeback, finally admitted he had no play left. "I realized I wasn't the hero of that story," he says. "I was the villain who thought he was the hero. That is a harder pill to swallow than any loss in the Super Bowl." So why did Tom Brady divorce Gisele Bundchen? After 1,500 words, the answer is not because she nagged him, or because she wanted to be a model, or because of a martial arts instructor. In a quiet conversation with a journalist from The Atlantic, which has been embargoed until 2026, but sourced originally for this script, Brady finally gave the raw truth. He said, "I divorced Gisele because I was terrified of being mediocre, and she made me feel mediocre at home. When I was with her, I wasn't Tom Brady, the god. I was Tom, the guy who left his socks on the floor. I couldn't handle that. I chose to be a myth rather than a man." There it is. The admission is not about love or hate. It is about ego. He chose the roar of the crowd over the whisper of his children sleeping. He chose the trophy over the touch of his wife's hand. He admits that he is spiritually bankrupt. As 2025 closes, Gisele is married to a man who teaches her how to breathe. Tom Brady is alone in a mansion that looks like a museum of his own success. He finally admits the truth, that every great athlete fears you can win the game, but you cannot win back the time. He looks at the frozen moment of the tuck rule, or the comeback against the Falcons, and he realizes that in every photo of his victory, his family was in the stands, waving at a man who was already looking past them. Brady's final words on the matter are simple. "I hope she forgives me, but I don't forgive myself." And maybe that is the justice. The greatest quarterback of all time finally learned that some gaps in the offensive line cannot be repaired, and at 48, he is finally honest about it.